we need to assess the dynamics of every region. That means what is our product mix in defense technology and what is it that the world is needing. The Indian Ocean countries, for example, require helicopters, naval vessels, coastal radars, and air defense systems. The African continent offers opportunities for land systems and small arms besides radars and rotary wings, both armed and unarmed. So this kind of product mix analysis as to what will work where is the first step after deciding what the objective is. The objective has already been decided, $25 billion of manufacturing in India and $5 billion of exports from India by 2030.
So while our attendees are joining, I'll just quickly start and set the agenda. Welcome to the Blue Circle. It's such a big privilege and pleasure to connect with everyone and our distinguished keynote speaker, who is handpicked because of the think input and the rich experience he brings in. Thank you also to our distinguished audience for joining us, most of whom are CEOs and CXOs and senior leaders. Many of them are our members and are repeat visitors to our webinars. This is very encouraging and motivates us to provide even higher levels of dialogue through the online mode as well. For those of you who are new with us today, Blue Circle is the world's first sector-specific networking app for business leaders that's built in India. We currently focus in 20 sector communities, such as e-mobility, aerospace and defense, energy, real estate, healthcare, and many more. We also present socioeconomic insights, which ultimately determine the evolving complexion of the market. Along with our weekly webinar series and our digital publication, you will be happy to know that we have recently launched the first version of the Blue Circle app for leaders, somewhat like the sector-specific LinkedIn for senior leaders, a space to have meaningful conversations, connect with over 10,000 plus like-minded leaders from India and across the globe, house high-quality curated content, and access business opportunities across these sectors. Those leaders among you who are interested, please do join us. I will share the link to the app in the chat section and will soon be sending invitations to our new guests post today's discussion. Now, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce today's keynote speaker, Mr. Pavan Choudary. He's a leading thinker on geopolitical competition and statecraft. He's a trustee with Bharatiya Videsh Niti Parishad, has written critically acclaimed books on Chanakya and Machiavelli. His best-selling book, When You're Sinking, Become a Submarine, is a classic on competition. He's also an angel investor, chairman of Blue Circle, and sits on several boards across the country. Welcome, sir. And for today's topic, Mr. Choudary will be discussing how can India align itself with the emerging geo-commercial order and catalyze the growth of the defense industry. Now I request Mr. Choudary to please begin the session, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gautam. And it's a pleasure to be with you and with all the audience who are joining in. I took a look at the list of people who have registered, and there are so many experts and so many leaders from this sector and adjacent sectors that I was kind of self-conscious that this session has been marketed as an expert masterclass. I feel this word expert masterclass is too big to define this session. In fact, I don't even know what is the meaning of this word expert masterclass. It is actually a little awe-inspiring for me. So I think you can just think of this session, everybody who has joined in, as the musings of a passionate scholar. And I would also like to clarify the topic a bit. Hedging, which you all know is a strategy which countries follow to cooperate with other countries in some sector and cooperate with some other countries in some other sector. For example, You cooperate with some countries on trade and investment. You cooperate with another set of countries on defense and another set of countries on environmental and other concerns. This strategy, which was emblematic of the liberal ideology of the post-World War, is slowly giving way to friendshoring. That means rather than random offshoring, countries will do interactions with other countries with whom they share similar political system, similar market system, long years of peace, good intellectual protection climate. This is called friendshoring. That means you do business with friends. And these friends will more and more in times to come, will participate on the defense side as well as on the trade side. And any changes in the geo-commercial ranking of any sector, usual sector, non-aerospace and defense sector, changes the share of the world market for that country. But in this sector, aerospace and defense, is such a sector that the changes in geo-commercial stature or space can alter share of the world, not world markets, but share of the world boundaries. So the changes in geocommerce in this sector very closely are braided with geopolitics, which is why we will try to start our discussion by giving you some background, which will refresh your memories, maybe add some new interesting insights before we go to how India can align with the geo-commercial order and catalyze the growth of the defense industry. So, in the post-Cold War era, China emerged as the #1 superpower to challenge US, and a superpower which was well integrated into the world economy also. Let us see what happened in the last, say, 20 years. In the last 20 years, a very pivotal change which came was the discovery of shale oil in USA, the shale oil revolution. This shale oil revolution slowly made USA the #1 oil producing country in the world. And this changed many things. First of all, it changed the pre-World War and post-World War industrial order. Because as you would recall, in 1920s, when the world powers came to know that oil is so important, that oil will lead the industrial revolution as well as the military capabilities, they carved out principalities or protectorates, which were oil producing countries. When Churchill realized that his ships can go much faster with oil than with coal, he carved out Iraq as a protectorate. When US realized after winning the World War that we will be so dependent on oil, it created a central command in Middle East. Similarly, Russia exerted its influence in CIS oil producing countries. China went to Sudan, Nigeria. So now with this shale oil revolution, and the renewables coming in the picture, America did not need the Middle Eastern oil reservoir so much. So it decided about more than a decade ago that the Asia pivot can change from Middle East to Southeast Asian countries. To this, I'll come in a moment. But let us follow this thought track that shale oil has been discovered. Now we need not spend so much money on securitizing our oil reserves in Middle East. So what happened? America has finally withdrawn or finally withdrawing from Middle East. This means Israel is not so important because Israel was the counter force to Iran and other aggressive or America unfriendly Arab nations. Israel was also very much required earlier to spy on the Russians. Their espionage was very strong. Now Israel is not so important. So you will see that the Iron Dome project of Israel, which is like the Patriot missile project, I mean, it gives you an air defense system that is not getting funding approvals from Senate. Israel, on the other hand, is looking for new partners. Israel is leaning towards China. An FTA is likely between Israel and China. Similarly, Russia. Russia is a country like India, not so large an economy, but very sharp leader who is punching far above his weight. So on the 10th of January, you know, Putin is meeting with NATO allies, and he still remains an important player, though the dynamics of the space are changing. Then you have Iran and North Korea. North Korea is quite like Libya, but North Korea cannot be subjugated like Libya was. You remember Gaddafi's country was bombed, his palace was bombed by a NATO air raid, but you can't do the same with North Korea, though his record of human rights, etc., might be as poor as the earlier dictator I spoke of, because he has nuclear deterrence. So this is how, now coming back to the Asia pivot. So Middle East was the Asia pivot earlier. Obama came. Obama said, things are changing. We may not need Middle East to that extent. Let us go to the Southeast Asia. But Trump reversed this move, which Biden has again furthered, as you will see in Blinken's visits recently to the Southeastern nations, where the China trade has become double that of USA. The Middle Eastern picture and its fallout will continue to bother us for some time, or continue to, let me say, perk our consciousness and also be important for all of us, because the social contract in those nations is also changing. Earlier, these oil-rich nations were giving a lot of subsidies, tax incentives, and even doles. No tax, I mean, for in many countries there were no taxes. So doles were given, but now as the renewable era is coming, though countries like Saudi Arabia are saying that 50% of our energy supply will be renewables by 2030, to pivot towards this, they will have to now change their social contract, which cannot be as generous as it was before. So this is another area, but there are many countries there like UAE, etc., which are large investors into India, among the largest investors into India, with whom we are engaging through new multilateral groups like the Middle East Quad, and even trying to enter FTAs with them. So this is one part of the emerging picture. The other part of the emerging picture is China. So why was China chosen as the US partner? This dates back to the Bangladesh war era. Why not India? Why China? Because during the Pakistan war in 1971 and a little before and after that, the United States of America had aligned with Pakistan, and we allied with Russia. The United States of America then did not know how strong our alliance with Russia is. The frigates moved towards the Indian Ocean from US, and they were ready to bomb South India. But simultaneously, the nuclear submarine from US moved to counter and retaliate any attack. This saved the war for us, and we won Bangladesh as a trophy. But every war, it has its spoils, but it has its pains also. So what was the pain? The pain was America, rather than coming towards India or any other country, went towards China and decided to have its trade and investment partnership with China. This was the turning point of China's industrial and economic fortunes. Now, situation has changed. Yesterday's friends are today's rivals, but that rivalry is not so sharp with Biden coming in. The rivalry when Trump was there was animosity, was belligerence at a very high decibel level also. But Biden is trying to tamp down the rivalry. So with US withdrawal, simultaneously, India's self-assertion, there is an entanglement with China. New groups are getting formed, like the Quad, thanks also to our very energetic PM. Whether it is the Quad or the Middle East Quad or even other international bodies, our energetic PM, who I feel in 7 years of geopolitical exposure stands next only to Putin. I think he's as good as Putin, though in the beginning, there were areas, in my humble view, where there might have been air pockets, which happens in any new leader's ascension to the throne, especially in the geopolitical and geo-commercial space. But those have been fast filled up because of his ability to quickly learn. So the Quad is there, and the Quad was earlier a group just dithering. All the 4 partners of Quad were dithering. It was a dithering space so that they don't have to commit to an alliance with US. And none of the parties was wanting to, because that crimps your strategic options. Fortunately for us, Australia blinked first and formed AUKUS. So a lot of friend-shoring space, it's still left open for us because our strategic options did not crimp. With Comcasa, Beka, etc., there are other business opportunities which will form. And Europe's engagement through UK and France, etc., also gives us many friend-shoring opportunities. The 5 FTAs are coming. Those FTAs, as you know, are with Canada, UK, UAE, Australia, and one more I'm forgetting, Israel. So if these FTAs come, our chances of doing business will further improve with the West. It is important to do business with the West and Japan because India has roughly 17% of the world population and 5% of the world wealth and technology. Whereas the West and Japan have 17% of the world population, but 70% of the world wealth and technology. So some kind of osmosis is naturally going to gravitate from there towards here for shift in this space. So the policeman has resigned, or is kind of retreating. Policeman, by policeman, I mean US. The flashpoints will be many and uncontrollable, which also gives us a product idea of short-range missiles, which I'll come to in some moment after when I'm discussing products. The West is also looking for a China plus one partner in Asia. Large part of West finds China very aggressive. And it wants a partner, a friend-shoring partner in Asia. Many of those countries are moving towards Vietnam, but India is also increasingly, because of its friend-shoring partnerships, because of these organizations like Quad and so many others, it will get its very strong bite of the pie, especially in the aerospace and defense sector, even if supply chains shorten. So this is broadly how I wanted to set the stage. Now, to align with this emerging reality, we need to first look at what is our entire basket of products. The entire basket of products is not just limited to defense technology, though we will focus on defense technology, but that basket has a spectrum of products. First is the grand strategy of defense. In this space also, because we have been a large buyer of arms, as well as well exposed to the world of arms, have fought our wars, have some very keen minds in India, both in the government and the defense and the private sector. This grand strategy of defense, particularly led by some of our best military minds, is also a space of engagement, and I'll tell you how. But before that, let me come to the second space. The operational and organizational and tactical constructs. Today, we are going for theater commands. So we have two experiences, pre-theater command, then theater command. Just last week, you would have seen the tactical advantage which Israel utilized to bomb Syria. You know about the port where the bombing took place, Latakia. And experts from all over the world were wondering for the 24 to 48 hours after the bombing as to how Israel evaded the S-400s, which cover the perimeter of Latakia. And then came the superb, intelligent, tactical answer that a transport plane of Russia was going to land at the same time, and the Israeli intelligence knew about it. So it landed in the shadow of the plane at the same time when the S-400s go on de-alerts or reduce their alerts, and proceeded with their bombing and moved. These kind of operational, organizational, and tactical constructs also have a space because many countries are relatively naive as compared to the Indian military and realpolitik and defense establishments' strengths in this area. The next space is defense technology. So we must cover all areas, all theaters of war: land, sea, air, cyberspace, space, and electronic war theater. All these areas we should cover in defense technology. Then the next space is informational warfare. Here also, based on our years of experience and sharp minds, in any military establishment conceals certain things and reveals certain things. They reveal certain strengths for deterrence. They also conceal. And similarly, they try to peer through what the rival is doing. So in this space also, there are significant strengths as well as technologies which we have. And there are now agreements with other countries which will illuminate our path further. The last is energy and commercial coercion. This is also a space which is ripe to exploit. I am not saying that all these four spaces other than defense technology, which I've mentioned, are going to yield very high harvests. No, but they are ripe to exploit, and they might catalyze the acceptance of our defense technology in India and abroad. Because if you are interacting on grand strategy of defense or operational, organizational, and tactical constructs, you are embedded in that country's system. They trust you. And people buy from those people they trust, especially in this area. In fact, you would know that many a time, just the fact, one item on your website which says that you trade with such and such a country becomes the reason why you do not get an order from another prime, defense prime, because it's a matter of trust and things are very closely held. So the first step which we need to do after taking stock of all this is we need to assess the dynamics of every region. That means what is our product mix in defense technology and what is it that the world is needing. The Indian Ocean countries, for example, require helicopters, naval vessels, coastal radars, and air defense systems. The African continent offers opportunities for land systems and small arms besides radars and rotary wings, both armed and unarmed. So this kind of product mix analysis as to what will work where is the first step after deciding what the objective is. The objective has already been decided: $25 billion of manufacturing in India and $5 billion of exports from India by 2030. So After this is done, we need to see that there are certain countries which are bleeding badly, which are losing the war in international trade of arms, like Russia. Russia has lost 25% of its share. Today, it is not the second largest exporter of arms. It is China. China has overtaken it just last year. Of course, Russia has lost also because 50% of the imports to the dip in exports from Russia to India is 50%. So, but we also understand that their military industrial system is atrophying. So after you have done a thorough comparative scan, geographical as well as industry, one of the important things which we need to do is proper content marketing. Our content marketing effort is very poor. Content marketing, just to refresh, focuses on creating educational content which pulls people towards your industrial website or selling station, let us say, towards your company. Creating educational content which pulls people towards your industrial website. The process through which this happens is education, where the prospect researches the challenge, then evaluation, where he weighs the choices, and conversion. Content marketing involves, in this space, blog posts, industry research, factory tours, SM posts, comparison guides, case studies, spec sheets, product videos. Now, in all these areas, we are lacking finesse. Let us take, for example, our product videos. The technological kind of beauty around precision and craftsmanship is missing. KFIR, the Israeli fighter plane, it advertises saying the only Lord above on the sky and below on the earth, like a surrogate God. And you should look at the quality of the videos, the credibility they inspire, and the reassurance they provide. So this area is very weak for us. Product video is just one part, starting from blog posts to industry research, to factory posts, to social media posts, to comparison guides, to case studies and spec sheets. All of them require much thorough and meticulously done work, because buyers are plagued in this sector not only by counterfeit parts, but inaccurate data, incomplete quotes. All that we need to really sharpen. The experiment of defense attaches helping us increase exports is a great idea in our embassies abroad. Exports have increased by 500% in the last 5 years. Some of these exports have also increased because of the offset clauses. And I would say that we can do much better in this space if we have technocrats as defense attaches. And the more we will have technocrats in this space, as well as in the space which is taken up by bureaucrats domestically, the better are the chances for this sector. Technocrats also should have a wide spectrum of knowledge, but they should have at least great knowledge of the systems or subsystems that they are working in. So I would say that we need technocrats with some generalized competence, but not generalists with some technical understanding which is secondhand. So on similarly geographically exploiting the space, several military bases might come up for our taking. I feel we should be cautious and thorough in taking up those offers, because the domestic politics also influences how receptive a country is to your military base, how are you acquiring the land, etc. Rather than that reciprocal logistics arrangement will have a good chance of fueling business in India for this sector. So that was the product and promotion part. Let us come to the pricing and finance part. The financial models, new models are coming up. Even Boeing and Airbus, when they were launched, they found that none of the airlines has the ability to pay for their aircrafts. So they brought in these leasing models by urging financial institutions to come in. And similarly, India has offered a $500 million letter of credit to Bangladesh. To Philippines, we might be exporting BrahMos, and an excellent example of these country-to-country arrangements comes in the joint dialogue which the Prime Minister of India and Philippines gave, and I request you to please go through it. The other point in the finance piece is the offset clause. So with $100 billion of imports over 10 years, it will bring $30 billion of offset opportunity. It will bring finance, and it will help the indigenous industry to engage with defense primes and learn their cuisines. Ecosystem of indigenization. There are several, one of the gentlemen among you has asked about the Kanpur, the UP corridor and TN corridor. These are great ideas. The cluster should be around already established institutions and organizations, whether it is an ordnance factory in Kanpur or an IIT Kanpur, because the latter will provide good knowledge of composites, systems integration, etc. The ITIs around there can provide good training, welding, or for welding, sheet metal molding, plastic processing, etc. And the ecosystem would be already, if not fully mature, at least in its nascency. Some of these areas are also very strong, have strong synergies with medical equipment. Medical equipment and aerospace and defense equipment often requires similar polishing ability, similar smooth surfaces, etc. And today, actually, medical equipment is also coming to the aerospace and defense space, because there can be malwares in your stent or in your implant, which can be activated tomorrow. So there is a real politic element here. The no import list is great. The export list is even better. Also, we can think of a favored country of supply list, because these are slow moving things. The import list also will not give results very fast, and the gestation period for these orders, etc., takes a long time. But we can also look at exploring a friend-shoring list of countries of favored supply. And in the end, conscious of the time and wanting to see your comments also, I would just say that, sorry, I would just say that I admire our PM, despite the fact that as a responsible citizen, I also feel that in our humble capacity, we should keep each leader accountable. But I can't but admire my PM. The energy which he brings, the parlays which he's having, his counterpart from China, G, has not moved out of his country in the last 2 years, and our PM is everywhere. I am reminded of a tribe called the Baptista rebels. The Baptista rebels are active in Latin America, and it is not a very powerful tribe. There are many more powerful and aggressive tribes where it is, where it exists. However, nobody attacks Baptista rebels because Baptista rebels is a very congregating tribe. It keeps having its conferences, meetings, discussions, chats with various tribes. So hardly ever a tribe thinks of attacking Baptista rebels because it never knows what is the strength of the alliances, who all are they allied to, etc. So I think our Prime Minister is doing a great job in this area. We hope that our northern and eastern borders will stay secure, and we can also take a leaf from his book by engaging more and more with our counterparts within the country as well as outside the country to make sure that this country never goes through the ignominy and the defeat that it has seen in the past. He says, Veer Bhoge Vasundhara. I would like to add, Saksham Bhoge Vasundhara, Sashakt Bhoge Vasundhara. On this note, I will pass it on to Gautam and also take a look at the comments or questions which have come.
Thank you, sir. So we have received one question from GP Captain PV Singh. He asks, how do you look at the competence of private industry to design, develop, and manufacture complex military weapon systems?
Okay, so I'll just come to that.
Yeah.
Because I've received 4 questions before that. So 4 really solid questions. So Group Captain PV Singh, please bear with me. And your question is also very good. So the first question which has come is from Ajay Dadwal, AD of GeoNexus Limited. How can the industry synergize to meet the futuristic requirements of defense forces? What should be the vision of upcoming defense industrial corridors? So I will answer this question and Group Captain Singh's question together. Before that, let me take the question on jet engines by Bharat Parekh, Executive Director, CLSA. For jet engines, will India go the US way with a new GHAL tie-up for F414 or French Safran's offer of tech transfer? Well, frankly speaking, my guess is as good as yours. So, in terms of the French Safran's offer of tech transfer, this offer is coming with the assurance of purchase of 136 and 100 Rafales. So this is a conditional offer. The GE HAL offer, if my information is updated, is for 100 engines, I believe. And right now, both the offers are really contesting very hard. And they have beaten out the Russian Makov offer. The Russian Makov offer was contested by the Biden administration through CATSA. CATSA, as you know, is the sanctions on American Adversaries Act. I'm forgetting the exact translation. So Biden administration said that these helicopters had a French engine. So because it had a French engine and France is an ally of US in NATO, so this product cannot be bought by India. This point also might play that Russia spurned might want America not to win. And it is very difficult for me to answer this question as to which way India will go. And frankly speaking, we are only in the intellectual and advisory space. We are in no way connected directly or indirectly with these large deals or any deal for that matter. Ours is a patriotic instinct of wishing to illuminate the path forward in our humble capacity. But hope I have answered the question. I have answered your question to some extent, though perhaps your guess is better than mine. Then the next question is from Usha Selvaraj, Tamarai founder. Very keen to know how India can align itself. I think we have already answered that. Now let us come to Group Captain PV Singh's question. How do you look at the competence of the private industry to design, develop, and manufacture complex military weapon systems? And how can the industry synergize to meet the futuristic requirements of defense forces? So, in this sector, as you know, it is a sector of aggregation, where systems aggregators are there. For example, Lockheed is there. Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is not making whatever it supplies, or Raytheon is not making whatever it supplies to us itself. It is sourcing the subsystems and putting them together. So in the subsystem space, we have pockets of, or let me say, we have a jigsaw of products which can come together and form a subsystem. And as pieces of the puzzle, there are many companies which can really rise up to the occasion, collaborate with other companies, and bring the system on the table. However, if you ask me how fast the private sector industry can do this, I would say these futuristic products will take some time to develop for the private sector industry. The strength lies in the government industry here, but the government industry doesn't have the dynamism, the thoroughness, the hunger. So some kind of a mix of people coming together would give us a better chance in developing these systems. Similarly, answering Ajay Dadwal's question, how can the industry synergize to meet the futuristic requirements of defense forces? The synergy is in the 6 theaters of war, which I said. In these theaters, 2 of the theaters are moving very fast. Actually, three theaters. Sorry. One theater is cyberspace, the other is space, and the third is rocket theater. You will be surprised to know that China doesn't have 3 services. China has 4 services: Army, Navy, Air Force, and PLA-RF, which is PLA Rocket Force. Their rocket force, they have understood that this was an innovation which will perhaps clinch the next war, as long as it doesn't go to the nuclear war level. Every discontinuous change, every innovation in defense which brings a discontinuous change alters the balance of power. First came the bow and arrow, then came the muskets, then came the cannons, gunpowder. Then in World War I came the ability to fire through the rotating blades of the plane. Roland Garros was the pilot whose name is immortalized in the lawn tennis stadium in France, Paris. He came with this. But in World War II, a very big innovation came, which was the atom bomb. After that, the next innovation came during the Desert Storm, where guided weapon systems and battle networks came together. And it was clear that now the precision bombing has come alive. We don't have to carpet bomb 100 places to get 5 targets. The battle networks, this is not the doctrinal name. Doctrinal name, I think the Russian side is some reconnaissance something, and Chinese call it the operational networks. But basically they are digital networks which tell you where the enemy is and also guide your weapon to get there. And the weapon can change course. In Desert Storm, it was clear, weapon can change course. That shook the world. After that, there has not been so big an innovation in the defense sector. So this is also one area which we should look at. And I've told you how the industry can synergize. It can be facilitated by the government. The government should try to bring in technocrats. Technocrats not only bring technical information and competence, but also often they bring greater humility than bureaucrats, which allows them to socially interface better and try to get the information and the cooperation that they are seeking. So this kind of a synergy is surely possible. It has to be pushed by the government as well as people like the ones who are there on this talk. What should be the vision of upcoming defense industrial corridors be? I already said that the technological ecosystem should form around existing centers of excellence, and the skilling, etc., also should happen not only in the IITs but the ITIs also. And we already know that there is a very big group, skilling group, which is working in the government. And this is what I wanted to say about the question so far. The last question is, for the growth of the, this comes from, again, Group Captain PV Singh, Senior Vice President of BEST Group. For the growth of the defense industry in India, the challenge is developing or adapting to new technologies leading to development of smart weapons. The country needs to focus on how to stop the brain drain and put the best brains in the design and development of new and innovative technologies. Manufacturing needs heavy investments. The present government has started work in this direction, but results won't be visible before a decade to materialize these technologies. So this is the comment. I fully agree with this. The brain drain has to be stopped because the game-changing technologies are going to come from big data, AI, and IoT. And these areas, we really need our youngsters to stay back and help us safeguard our borders, which have been porous for many centuries before the last. And I hope that this time we protect them adequately and also become protectors of our friends across the world. So this is what my ambition or my hope or prayer or wish is. And on that note, thank you very much for such wise questions and for your presence on this discussion. I'll pass it on back to Siddharth or Gautam.
Thank you very much, sir. Such an insightful and engaging session and a privilege to hear you. Our guests and I have been hooked till the very end and have taken home several nuggets from today's session. And thank you to our leaders in the audience for joining us and for staying till the very end and for always sharing excellent questions. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.